Talks live. A couple minutes to jump on board. For those of you who are watching the replay on this, go ahead and throw replay into the comments section. I always like to know who's been watching the show. And also, if you have any questions, I do go back and pick up those questions and try to get those questions answered. So we've got quite a few good questions coming in this week from all of you all. So I'm excited to get to those. Also had first day of school, back to school day for all four of my kids. So it's been a whirlwind of a day. I do want to take the chance now to put in my email. And just to remind you all that you can email me directly at this email, cosi@cositalks.com. And this is where you can send me all of your questions, comments, concerns, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I do answer. I read all of my own emails, don't have an assistant. Wish I had an assistant, but I answer all the emails myself, and I try to do it within a couple of business days. All right. Hey, we got Alex on board. We got Harsh on board. Guys, don't be shy. Let me know who you are, where you're from, and what is in your mug. And yes, I'm having water on the show. I'm breaking my own rules here and bringing water on the show because it's like in the high 90s still here in Florida. We've got Alberis, bienvenido. Glad you could make it this evening. We've got Kim on board. Thank you for jumping on board, guys. So how many of you guys are at the Amputee Coalition Conference? I'm having a little bit of a FOMO right now, not being there. We've got Clarence in Loganville, Georgia. Alberis is in New York City. We got Andrea. There's my token occupational therapist there. And Andrea, I'm going to be calling upon you a little bit later in the show for one of these questions, so stick around. We got Denise from Hot, North Carolina. There's one of my Tar Heels right there watching me from the YouTube channel. Guys, I do want to remind you that I broadcast to my Cosi Talks Facebook page and my YouTube channel at the same time. So if you know of somebody who's having trouble finding me on Facebook, they can find me a little bit easier on YouTube. And then while you're there, hit subscribe and check out all the video stuff I have on there. I'm trying to post a little bit more and just show you guys a little bit more about some of the stuff I've been working on for the YouTube channel. Wait, it's in Orlando next year? I didn't know that. Andrea, can you confirm that? John is at the conference. We've got Bonnie on board. Let's see, we got John Collins. We got Steven in Jacksonville, the Cosi house. What's going on, Steven? So Andrea, hello, follow up with me. Is it really going to be in Orlando next year? Then that's like spitting distance from me. That's going to be awesome. We've got Teresa on board. Hey, Teresa, I haven't seen you on the show in a while. I'm glad you're here in New Mexico, and she has been killing it with her gait pattern. We got Bill coming in from Wisconsin. Captain's in the house. What's going on, Captain? We got Van Gregory from Texas. Oh, Andrea, that's awesome. Okay, so sign up for this week as a discount. I might just do that, Andrea. And those of you all who are my Floridians, we need to put on a show and go next year to the Amputee Coalition Conference. There will be no excuse whatsoever. All right, guys, we're going to go ahead and get started. We got a great group on board right now. For those of you watching me for the first time, welcome. My name is Cosi Belloso. I'm a physical therapist, amputee specialist here in hot, sticky Florida, Tampa, Florida, to be more precise. I am the owner of Palanca, which is an amputee outpatient clinic here in Tampa, and obviously the host of Cosi Talks, going on 4 years now that we've been broadcasting this show. So as you can tell, I've been a little bit quiet for the past couple of months. My 4 beautiful children were at home, summer vacation, and I'm very stingy with my time with my children, and I love to spend as much time there. So it's been a little bit quiet on the social media front. But as you can see, today was the first day they went back to school, and hopefully some of you saw a little explosion there on my social media of some of the good stuff that I've been working on that now I want to share with you guys. So one of the things I've been working on is putting some more fun stuff on my 2-minute chat. Okay, so my 2-minute chat is exactly that. If you go to my YouTube channel, and I'm going to put the link up here to make it easy for you guys to follow. If you go to my YouTube channel, which is under Cosi Talks, one of the sections that you're going to see is called 2-minute chats. So I know sometimes when we're trying to find information and learn things about being amputees and things like that, it's a lot of information. So the whole point of this section on the YouTube channel was just to provide you with little bits and pieces of different topics about being an amputee. So everything from limb volume management to adjustable socket technology to targeted muscle reinnervation. We've got little 2-minute videos. And then underneath those 2-minute video, guys, I have more links. So if you find, yes, I do want to know more in depth about adjustable socket technology, then underneath that video, I have links to all the longer videos and explanations and interviews I've done with experts from the field. Yeah? Thumbs up? Guys, let me know if you've actually checked out my YouTube channel. I'm kind of curious. I'm going to put you on the spot right now. How many of you have actually looked at my YouTube channel to see some of the stuff I have going on there? It's okay if you haven't, but I just want to know who has. All right, we've got, let's see. George, hey, George from New York City, moving to Orlando. That's right, George. Welcome, man. Bring the sunblock. Bring the sunblock. We got David from Newberry, South Carolina, drinking his cherry Coke. That sounds really good right about now. We got Johnny V in the Cosi Talks house. We got Liz Shea from Brooklyn. Liz, totally random. I just finally read the book, A Tree Grows in Brooklyn. Y'all remember that book? I finally got around to reading it last week. Beautiful, beautiful American novel. Let's see. We've got Susan. She says, I have. Oh, good. You guys have checked out my YouTube channel. Denise has, Susan has, Stephen has, David has. Good. Liz has. Awesome. Liz Zemke, Leanne, and I are at the National Conference for Amputee Coalition. Oh, my goodness. I wish I could be there. Didn't work out this year, but next year, man, if it's in Orlando, I am there. Awesome. So Teresa's also seen the YouTube channel. Wonderful. All right, guys. So just as a reminder, you can always email me your questions directly to me, cosi@cositalks.com. And with that, we're going to jump into the first question that was sent to me. Marianne, I hope you're on board this evening, darling. I missed hearing from you. Marianne is just a wonderful soul who works so, so hard. And I admire her so much. She's a bilateral above the knee amputee. And man, she puts in the long, hard hours, and she is doing beautifully. So she emails me a lot of questions, and I love it when she does that. So she says, I have a couple questions for you. You can answer them on the show. I can't pull myself up in bed without grabbing something with my hand. Shouldn't I be able to just sit up without my legs on? What am I doing wrong? Marianne, you're doing nothing wrong, okay? Part of the function of your legs is that it obviously moves you around. It provides muscle movement, muscle strength, and stuff like that. But it's also a lever arm. Okay. So when you're getting up in the morning, right, obviously you're using your abdominal, your core muscles to get you up, but those abdominal muscles are pulling on your lower body. Okay. So some of your abdominal muscles attach on the lower part of your body, the lower part of your pelvis, right? So when the muscle contracts to sit you up, it's going to pull on the lower part of your body. Okay. And when you had both of your anatomical legs provided like a lever balance to prevent you from tipping back onto your back. Okay. So now that you don't have that there, you don't have that body weight to kind of help with the balance. Okay. So it's nothing you're doing wrong. It's just, the simple mechanics of it that aren't working in your favor right now. Is it to say you would never be able to get up out of bed without using your arms? No, but there's nothing wrong with it. Let's put it that way. There's nothing wrong with it. It's also very similar to when a paraplegic or a quadriplegic is first learning that skill as well, when they're first learning how to sit themselves up in the bed. Right? They don't have the assistance of their lower legs anymore because those muscles simply aren't working anymore to help with the pull to get themselves sitting up. Okay. So there's certain strategies that we use. And I know Andrea, she's probably done her time in spinal cord injury and rehab as well. So she can probably tell us a couple of hints there. But sometimes just propping up on elbows, that's usually the first step. And then cantering over and putting one arm up in the other. Okay. And it's just finding a different way of doing things. It's not to say that you're not going to be able to get out of bed by yourself. It just means you're going to do it in a different way than perhaps what you were used to doing prior to your amputations. Right. And guys, it's a big mentality change that I found back in the days when I worked in inpatient rehab. That was a big mind shift that a lot of my patients had to realize is, after accepting and coming to the realization of what their injuries would mean, whether it was a spinal cord injury, a traumatic brain injury, or an amputation, realizing that there are some things that they will never be able to do the same way again, but it doesn't mean that they won't be able to do them, right? We just have to adapt and grow and keep moving forward. Right? So I'm going to put a question to you guys right there. what is it in your life as an amputee that you've, besides walking, that's the low-hanging fruit right there. What is it, the functional activity, the movement, mobility thing that you feel like you had to really adjust the most compared to prior to amputation? So things like getting up and down off the commode, taking a shower, getting out of bed. What was it that really, besides walking, what was it that took you most by surprise about having to relearn how to do? I want to hear your comments. And those of you watching the replay, I want to hear your opinion about this as well. So put that in the comments section. All right, I need water. Thank you, Andrea. I will look into that. Stephen says going upstairs, right? Going upstairs. And that's certainly a challenge when you have a prosthesis, even with my below the knee amputees. Miss Debbie says, first timer here. Oh, welcome, Miss Debbie. Glad you could join us this evening. Miss Debbie, if you have any questions for me, don't be shy. Put them in the comment section. Johnny says his balance. Megan says fishing and taking a shower. Okay. Yeah. Right. So a lot of these things that, okay, David says stairs. Yeah. Right. Things that you take for granted, right? When you have the two anatomical legs and then you have a prosthesis now to contend with, and realizing that even just the simplest of movements, it requires an adjustment, right? Susan says, getting up off the ground when I've fallen. Patricia says, gardening and showering. Yeah. Right. And then Kim Richards says, uneven ground. Okay. Okay. Let's move on to the next question. And guys, I have a couple of questions here that people sent in, but feel free, go ahead and put your questions right now in the comment section. Go ahead and put those in now, and we will get to them as soon as I finish these couple of other questions. Van Gregory says, going to the commode without the feet on the floor. Denise says, stairs and stepping off curbs or the porch. Teresa says, stopping to turn my head to see if cars are driving by in a parking lot, for example, right? And not losing your balance when you're turning your head. Proprioception. That's the key right there. Susan Lacey says, going down ramps, pushing a shopping cart downstairs ramp is scary. Yeah. Susan says stairs, still can't do them right. Yeah. Yeah. Right. Okay. And guys, for me, whenever I ask this question for my patients as well, I'm like, what is the thing that you are most surprised about? And let's tackle it. Let's face it head on and practice, 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 and adapt it however it is that we can so that you can be functional in your life. And that kind of brings me to the second part of this question that Marianne sent in. And she said, when I have my legs on, I cannot just stand up without pushing off with my arms. What muscles do I have to strengthen in order to be able to do this? Now, guys, keeping in mind, she is a bilateral above the knee amputee. Okay. So a lot of that has to do with just the nature of these prosthetic knees, right? So the one with one exception on the market that we'll discuss in a moment, basically with all the prosthetic knees out there, if you are a bilateral above the knee amputee, you got to use two hands, right? It's just between the mechanics of the knees and getting them to be able to stand up. There's no amount of muscle power. Okay. I think I've only ever seen one amputee, bilateral above the knee amputee, who was able to stand up without using their hands. And it's because they had very, very long, almost knee disarticulation amputations. Okay. But yes, as a bilateral above the knee amputee, you have to use your arms to give yourself that push so that you can then straighten out your prosthetic knees, right? And it's very, everybody has their own technique of how they get up off the chair, okay? And a lot of times my amputees get really frustrated with this fact. But again, it goes back to what I just said a few minutes ago. Just because you cannot do the activity the way you used to do it prior to amputation doesn't mean you won't be able to do it. You're just going to have to do it in a modified or in an adaptive manner, right? Now, this also applies, okay, for my unilateral, my single leg amputees, okay, especially with my above the knee amputees. There are a lot of my above the knee amputees, right, that are very deconditioned, right, that their fitness level is not that great. And it requires a lot of energy to get up into standing when you're wearing a prosthetic knee, okay? So a lot of times, again, they might get frustrated because they're having to always use their arms to get up. But here are my thoughts on that, okay? For my single leg unilateral above the knee amputees, I like them to learn the skill of how to get up from a chair without using their arms. But in their daily life, I actually encourage them to use their arms. And here's why. Okay. When you're not using your arms, what are you probably going to do? And if your answer is you're probably going to use your anatomical leg, you're correct, right? So whether you're a below the knee amputee or an above the knee amputee on one side, when you go to stand up, the natural thing for you to do is going to be to stand up using primarily your sound leg, okay? And you do that day in and day out for several years, right? You're going to end up with some pretty heavy duty chronic injuries and pain, chronic pain in that sound leg, because that's a lot of body weight that you're having to put on one leg. Right. And you see it all the time, especially in my more experienced amputees. They're just so used to it. They don't even notice that they do it. They just, lean over to the side that's the anatomical side and pop up onto their leg. Right. But then over the course of time, again, all of your body weight on that one leg standing up, that's a lot of body weight. And unless you're doing pistol squats to keep yourself in shape, right? So, when my patients are in my clinic, from a practical standpoint, I will teach them how to get up out of a chair without arms, because let's face it, you might just find yourself in that situation someday, right? And it's good to know how to do this skill. But for everyday purposes, I tell them, hey, dude, God gave you two arms, use them, right? Use them to take the strain off of that sound leg. No shame in that. All right, hang on. Bob, you are taking up all the space on the couch here. All right, let me read some of these comments that just came in. So George says, I'm a right above the knee amputee, so driving was the biggest adjustment for him. Yes. Thank you, Chuck. And then Susan says, when away, I always look around a room to look for a chair that has arms. It's easier to get up. Yeah. So like I said, Susan, with my patients, I try to teach them sorry guys, my legs are like getting tangled up here. If my patient is capable of getting up out of a chair without arms, I teach them that skill, right? We'll do the strengthening. And Marianne, to answer that, the thing you have to strengthen the most, glutes, because that's what powers you up. Okay. Now, I mentioned earlier that the prosthetic knees out there don't really allow you the ability as a double amputee to stand up without basically having to use some arm power along the way. And the one exception that I'm hearing about, and I don't know much about this knee, guys, so you guys got to do your own research and take it with a grain of salt, is the Oser power knee. Okay, I've been hearing a lot of buzz about this knee, about how it basically rocket powers you up into standing as a bilateral above the knee amputee. And I know one of my locals recently was fit for those two knees. So I'm really excited to see what those knees do. But that's all I got for you now for that. All right, let's move on. Hey, comadre, glad you could join in. All right, let's see. Miss Debbie asks, I've got my leg yesterday left below the knee. Proprioception, the best place to start, yes. By leaning at each place of the clock face, yes. So, Ms. Debbie, you hit the nail on the head. For your first time watching this show, you already know what my favorite topic is to talk about, and that is proprioception. So just to review for those of you who have not been watching my show for the past 4 years, proprioception is your brain's ability to know where it is in space. So when you close your eyes and I tell you, give me a thumbs up, you're going to give me a thumbs up. Right? Yes, thumbs up. All right. So it's your brain's ability to know where it is in space without necessarily having to look at that. And obviously, as an amputee, when you're learning to use your prosthetic foot, your prosthetic leg, that sense of proprioception is gone, right? And it has to be relearned, redeveloped. Okay. And that's the beginning, especially if you address this particular skill in the beginning, you're going to find a lot more success in your comfort level and in your stability with your prosthesis. So yes, Miss Debbie, the exercise you're talking about, the clock face exercise, it's a weight shifting exercise. And the weight shifting exercise, guys, I do have it. Let me see. If you'll bear with me for a moment. Aha, here we go. All right, so guys, if you go to my Cosi Talks Strong Body webpage, where I have 150 exercises for above the knee and below the knee amputee. Whoa, what do you mean my password's not working? It's my password. Seriously? Okay. Well, never mind. It's like it does not want to play nicely. All right, guys. Well, it wouldn't be a Cosi Talk show if there wasn't some sort of technical glitch on there. But in the Cosi Talk Strong Body program, those of you who are subscribed to the program, you're going to find in the beginner phase 1 balance exercises, you're going to find the weight shifting. So yes, Miss Debbie, usually when I start off with my patients, I start off in the side to side. So I guess from 9 o'clock to 3 o'clock, right? Doing those weight shifting. Then I do 12 o'clock to 6 o'clock, right? Forward and backwards weight shifting. And then I'll do diagonals. So I break it up. I don't do the whole clock right away because it can be just a little bit overwhelming for some of my patients. And then also when I break it up, I'm really having my patients focus on activating their glutes, activating their core, and then we put it together into a clock face format. So hopefully that makes sense. And guys, I'm going to type that in there for you. Okay, guys. So you hear me talk a lot about this program, and I am very proud of this program. So it's 150 videos for above the knee and below the knee amputees, head to toe fitness from beginner through the advanced athlete. There's exercises there. And then there are also 2 books, one for above the knee amputee and one for below the knee amputee, full color books. And it has all the exercises in here as well with explanations, lots of education and information in there. Okay. All right, let's see. So Miss Debbie, are you working with a physical therapist? Curious minds want to know. Yes, Jill, overuse. And you're referring back to the getting up on the one leg when you're getting up from a chair. Big time overuse injuries. Yes, Susan, she says, even people with 2 legs use a chair arm if it's available. Yeah, I do. Won't lie. Practical wisdom. Yes, Pastor David. What are pistol squats? Van Gregory, pistol squats were invented to torture people, and I use them all the time. So basically, it's just a single-legged squat. So if you have 2 anatomical legs, you put one leg in front of you, and then you squat down using your other leg. I can do half of one. That's it. I'm working on it. Let's see. Teresa says, I have to squeeze every muscle, especially core. It's easier to do in the morning when I have more energy. And yes, my PT guy noticed I am putting too much stress on the sound knee. And again, those of you who are beginner amputees and you're getting used to using your leg, before you've developed any pain, you kind of develop the habit of using your sound leg more. And that's something that I really, really try to hammer out of my patients as best as I can. I mean, I understand you're always going to favor your stronger leg. It's just going to happen, but at least getting you to as close to the even side as I possibly can. That's a big goal for me. Let's see. Denise says, use my arms, just don't worry about it. It's easier. There you go. Susan says, I look straight ahead, but down. So I know what's in front of me before I get there. The time I didn't, I stepped on a snake. Ooh. And at the moment figured out, I could run. Nothing like stepping on a snake to show you how fast you can run. It's also the really best cardio exercise ever when you accidentally walk into a spider web. Yeah. Think about that. Best cardio exercise ever. So yeah, guys, when it comes to the proprioception, you start in the beginning with these weight shifting exercises. You start with putting weight back into that residual limb, activating that vestibular sense and everything that you need for proprioception. And then you do start training little by little to look up. In the beginning, however, I tell my patients to look down at their prosthetic leg. Okay, because that's part of how your brain relearns what's going on. It has to look at the visual as well. And then slowly we train the person to not rely completely on their visual sense for proprioception. All right. Ooh. That is a great question, Johnny V. He says there's a lot of lower limb amputees that provide peer support. Upper limb arm amputees are a minority when it comes to peer support, since their population is a smaller community. What are some of the peer resources you know of for upper extremity limb loss community besides Amputee Coalition and Hangers Empower? It would help us as peer visitors. Truth be told, Johnny, that's my resources right there. For me, when it comes to peer support, I love the Amputee Coalition Certified Peer Visitor Program. I must recommend it at least once a week. I was talking to a physical therapist yesterday in Indiana, and he was calling me to ask just some advice for one of his patients, and his patient, is starting to show signs of depression, and automatically the first thing that comes out of my mouth is Amputee Coalition Certified Peer Visitor Program, and he hadn't heard about it before. So that is a program that's usually where I tell people to go and start. And you're right, Johnny. Even in my own, professional experience, my professional experience with upper extremity amputees is so small compared to lower extremity amputees. So actually, if anybody else out there has any suggestions, I would love to hear it into the comments section as well. Excuse me, guys. Thank you. Oh, so Miss Debbie says starting September 22nd, she'll be with a physical therapist. Good. That's going to set you up for success right there, Miss Debbie. Oh, thank you, Robin. And Robin, I gotta give a shout out to Robin. She is my beautiful female above the knee model in my strong body program. And boy, was she a trooper when it came to filming all these videos and taking all those beautiful pictures. So guys, shout out to Robin right there. Andrea says there are some good but small Facebook groups out there for our upper extremity amputees. Yes, thank you. That's right. I should have remembered that. There is a camp called Skills for Life, is a bilateral arm difference, bilateral upper extremity amputation group. It's like a program, kind of like the boot camp for bilateral above the knee amputee that Hanger's going to have in September. Thank you, Lisbeth. Naked Prosthetic Support Group on Facebook. Thank you, Lisbeth. Thank you. We have Steven says, doing pelvic thrusts and squats with my hands for stability 3 times a week. When you get stronger, will the added muscle make the socket tighter? That's a very good question. So, Steven, yes, yes and no. When you are building muscle strength, right? Theoretically, the muscle fiber, the size of the muscle fiber is going to increase, right? But also what increases when you are building muscle strength is how many muscle fibers are being recruited, okay? So contrary to popular belief, you actually don't use all of your muscle fibers when you contract a muscle. Your brain only recruits a certain number of muscle fibers, right? So depending on how strong the contraction is will determine how many muscle fibers are recruited. So when we strengthen a muscle, we're looking at increasing the size of the fiber, but we're also thinking of increasing how many fibers are used up at once, okay? So when it comes to like how big you're going to get, a lot of that also has to do with genetics, and your sex. Males are going to build that muscle a little bit more so than females because of the testosterone that they have, right? But I've never, unless it's someone who's really, really gung-ho aggressive muscle bodybuilder, I really haven't heard of, just with a general strengthening fitness exercise program, that someone's socket all of a sudden got too tight. Okay. And then if you think about it also, Stephen, if you're replacing muscle, like if you're building muscle, chances are you're also burning a little fat there as well. And muscle fibers are going to be a little bit more slim, compared to fat. And that's why when people are on weight loss programs, right, their weight might actually stay the same, the number on the scale, but they notice that their clothes are getting bigger on them because they're building muscle, losing fat. So, Stephen, I think you'll have pretty much an even exchange. Now, not to say you shouldn't stay on top of your socks and making sure that you are on top of how your socket is fitting. Okay. Dulcie says, when you're an amputee for years, the challenge for me is adapting to all the new technologies, from a wooden leg to me swinging the leg to a hydraulic knee, and from an exoskeletal leg to an endoskeletal leg. Wow, technology over 44 years has been amazing, but it's hard to break old habits when walking. Yes, Dulcie, you are absolutely right. And I'm like tearing apart my studio here. But speaking of just like an exoskeleton, really old model, check out this number. right? Right. Here's a bit of a dinosaur right here for us to look at. And yes, and we actually talked about this on last week's show when it came to someone had asked me if I prefer mechanical knees to microprocessor knees, right? And part of the discussion I had is I like both. When I first started practicing 20 years ago, nobody had microprocessor knees. Nobody had them. Just a couple of hot shots over at Walter Reed, our veterans up there, right? Everybody trained on mechanical knees, and we did really well with some of these mechanical knees, right? So some people, as they progressed, as time progressed, they tried the microprocessor knee and found that they, in fact, wanted to stay with their mechanical knee because that's what they were used to using their entire life. That's what their bodies had adapted to using, and they were doing just fine with it. So yeah, I'm with you, Susan. Dulcie. I love all the technology that comes out, but sometimes it's like I see some folks that are like, no, thank you. Just let me have my knee and foot that I've had for the past couple of years, and I'm very happy with that. Yes, the Skills for Life. So thank you, Lisbeth. Skills for Life for bilateral upper limb loss. Okay, so Susan asks, I'm a right below the knee amputee. Why is my thigh muscle almost 3/4 atrophied? I don't just sit around, I walk. So am I not using hardly any thigh muscle when I walk? So keeping in mind, Susan, even though your thigh muscles are theoretically all intact, right? They're working differently than what they did when you had a full length leg, right? And then also keeping in mind that maybe you're not even realizing how much you're probably favoring your left side, your intact side, right? So all of these things start to play into this, right? And then also the mechanics of how what's left of your lower leg muscles, of your calf muscles, they are not going to be activating as much. Just again, it's just a mechanical disadvantage that's there, right? The muscles have been cut. They are being placed into a socket, right? So it's not being able to activate as they normally would have, right? And that travels up the chain and can affect your thigh muscles. Okay. Now, as a below the knee amputee, okay, it's easier for you to activate those thigh muscles because they are in fact intact. You just have to be more focused in your exercises and targeting those exercises to that. So perhaps before your amputation, maybe your fitness was just walking, right? Maybe you had a walking program and that kept you fit and kept your muscles strong. Now, as a below the knee amputee, you need to select exercises specific to those thigh muscles for your quads, for your hamstrings, for your glutes, to keep things strong. Okay, you do have to work a little bit harder just because those muscles now are at a mechanical disadvantage. So to prevent some of that atrophy, you have to target them a little bit more. Mark S., what's going on, man? Welcome to the show. So Steven says his socket has been fitting snug and with no socks since he started the strengthening. So Steven, again, you're a dude. Guys build muscle, a lot easier than women do, and they build a little bit more size on those muscles. So if you are in fact sticking to that program as steadily as you are, yeah, it could be that muscle is starting to grow a little bit more. So just keep that in communication with your prosthetist. If you find like it's getting too snug, right, make sure you get that socket checked out. Hey, Tom. So Susan says, yes, I favor my left side. Okay. And again, it just happens over the course of time. And this is something I'm always checking out. And when I check out my patients, and Susan, you're not alone. A lot of my below the knee amputees, if I look at them and when they're sitting down, the thigh on their amputated side is usually just a little bit softer compared to the one on their sound side. All right. I always like this question because I always like to hear what you guys have to say about this. Susan sent me a question that says, I'm a right above the knee amputee, and I plan to fly soon, a 7-hour trip. My leg swells in the socket. However, if I take it off, I can't easily get it back on. Suggestions on how to help this out. So guys, start putting in your suggestions in the comment section and I'll tell you what it is that I tell my patients. So obviously in summertime and in holidays, we're traveling a lot more. Okay. And getting to know your body, you really just don't know how your body's going to react until you take that first trip. right? So for those of you who are first timers, okay, couple of ways to handle this. You can either just decide to take your trip without your prosthesis on, especially if you're traveling with a wheelchair and crutches and walker. And that way you don't have to deal with it. I have occasionally some people who prefer to do it that way, and they don't have to deal with it. Other ways to think about it is carry extra socks with you. And this is a trick that Reggie Showers, my buddy Reggie Showers, taught me. And he's a bilateral below the knee amputee. When he goes to travel on a plane, he gets into his chair. If he's wearing 4-ply socks, then he'll take off 2-ply and put his sockets back on. So when the plane takes off, his sockets are a little bit loose, but then as the flight goes on, his legs swell just a little bit and it fills in the socket. But he keeps them in the socket so that when it's time to get off the plane, he can fit into his socket. So that's one way of doing it. If you can know that you're, anticipate how much you think you're going to swell, and then take off those socks and then put your leg back in the socket. The other part of doing it, there's Mark and Lizzie. I love that. The other way of doing it is also bringing the shrinker with you. And this is something I tell you, even if you don't wear it on the plane, even if you don't typically wear your shrinker at home, take it with you on your trip. Okay. Mainly because, again, you don't know if your leg is going to swell. Okay. So some people will get onto the plane, put the shrinker on. Okay. And that way that shrinker is providing compression during the entire flight. And then they find they have an easier time getting back into their socket when the plane lands. Okay. And then another note about that shrinker is some people don't get that rebound swelling until they get off the plane, right? And so I tell people, take your shrinker because you might need it in the hotel room that evening, especially if you're doing a lot of walking on your trip, right? So always good to have it with you. Yes, bring it. Susan says, bring my shrinker every time I'm in the hospital as well. Yeah. So guys, just as and I practice what I preach. For myself, I'm a breast cancer survivor and I have to wear sometimes a compression garment on my arm to prevent my arm from swelling. So I just have it with me on the plane. I don't have to use it in my daily life anymore. But whenever I take a trip on a plane, I just put my compression garment into my carry-on because I just don't know if I'm going to have an episode of swelling or not, right? So that's just something, even for my experienced amputees, I say, just take a shrinker that's actually really tight and stretchy with you. So what are some of the other things that you guys do when you guys travel on airplanes in terms of how do you manage the swelling? And another thing is I tell people is try not to take your prosthesis off, mainly because when you do take your prosthesis off, the first thing that happens in flight is boom, you have that swelling on, the swelling that just starts to happen in the residual limb. So if you're able to keep that socket on throughout the flight, kind of recommended. The other side of it is when you have a long flight, like the 7-hour flight, okay, get up and walk around. Okay. The good thing is because these planes are so tight and small, you always got something to grab onto. Okay. So wait until the flight attendant tells you you're allowed, seatbelt signs off and all that kind of good stuff. Get up and walk. Okay. And guys, there is no shame in that. I have 4 kids and I've been traveling with all 4 of my kids since they were newborns. Okay. And so I've done plenty of having to, excuse me, sir, excuse me, sir, excuse me, ma'am, having to get out into the aisle and walk my crying baby up and down, right? It happens. Okay. So walking up and down the aisles in the plane can also help prevent some of that swelling from setting in, right? Okay. Susan says, my socket is tight. I don't wear socks and I don't have a shrinker. I wear an Oser vacuum liner. Last time I flew, I took my leg off and really had a hard time putting it back on. I was thinking about walking. Yeah. So Susan, couple things. Ask your prosthetist to get you a shrinker. I mean, you don't have to wear it. You just keep it with you and just have it for when you travel. So that's something that you can think about. And then the other side of it is trying, and I know it's uncomfortable, guys, especially for my above the knee amputees when you're sitting down and you've been sitting in that hard socket for a long time. So I get that. You're trying to keep your socket on and walking. That would be my top hint right there. Susan says, I always have a go bag, which keeps extra socks, shrinker, and liners, etc. What about medication? Yeah. I mean, Susan, you definitely have to consider if you're on certain medications that predispose you to swelling, then that's something you means you probably need to prepare ahead of time, even more so for when you go on a plane. And actually, this has been my theme today. If you guys saw any of my social media, actually, give me 1 second, guys. I'm going to post this real quick again. So yes, I am shamelessly trying to promote my YouTube channel a little bit more because I am adding things to it and I want you guys to watch these videos. So the video that I just posted there is just a quick 2-minute chat on what adjustable sockets are. Okay. Oh, as far as Susan, you mean to reduce swelling, medications for reducing swelling? No, Susan. It's one of those things where if you're on a diuretic because your doctor has you on a diuretic, then that's one thing. But I would not, unless your doctor specifically tells you, I would not take an extra diuretic. That can really mess up your electrolytes and really do bad things to you. And I wouldn't take a water pill. And I know sometimes these water pills are available over the counter. No bueno. No bueno. Okay. That's messing with stuff that you don't want to mess around with. If you don't have any kind of medical conditions and you're not on a diuretic, the best way to manage the swelling is just through these conservative methods. Okay. When you start trying to take diuretics and water pills when you don't medically need them, you can really run into some problems. Tom says, I'm one of the lucky ones. I have no swelling problems when I fly. You are one of the lucky ones, Tom. So guys, here's another solution for swelling. And this is not just for, when you're flying, this is just in general. And that's the adjustable socket. And this has come up a lot on my show this year. I am working with Click Medical. They are one of the wonderful, generous sponsors for my show this year. And the reason they're one of my generous sponsors is because I really like their product. So I showcase this one a lot. And next week, guys, mark this on your calendar. Next week, Click Medical is coming on my show. We're going to talk about their Revo Lock suspension system. And we're also going to be answering any questions you might have about their Revo Fit adjustable system. Okay. So the cool thing is if you are somebody who has a lot of issues with your residual limb volume going up, going down, going up, going down, if you have something like an adjustable socket, that can help solve a lot of these problems. And this has been something that some of my folks have taken on flights, right? And typically when they get on the flight, they can loosen. Okay. Let me get the right one. This is a demo model, guys. By the way, a lot of people were asking, why are there so many dials on there? This is a demo model, so it's got all sorts of different aspects on here, but usually you only have one dial on there. So for example, with the panels, here's the panel one. Okay. So as you can see, the person sits down, they can loosen this up, probably not that much, but they can loosen it up, right? And then they just tighten it as needed. Okay. And then there's also in the back, the gap design right there, right? So the person can loosen it up when they're sitting. And a lot of my patients find that they like this design because when they sit down, my above the knee patients, when they sit down, it's a little bit more comfortable in the bottom, in the back when they sit down. And then they can just tighten it up as needed. Okay. So if you're someone who finds that they have a lot of issues with their residual limb volume going up and down, and you also happen to travel a lot, that's a great solution right there to talk to your prosthetist about too. And that particular product is made by the company called Click Medical. And again, the information is in the YouTube video that I just posted as well. So if you're curious about that. What's up, Eric? Glad you could join us. All right. Teresa says, is it normal for AKs with years of experience to stop to catch your breath and take a mini 15-second or less rest when walking without assistance, say across a parking lot? Yeah. Yeah. Okay. As an above-the-knee amputee, from now until the day you shuffle your mortal coil, you will be using at least 60 to 80% more energy to walk than a person with 2 anatomical legs. That's it. Okay. So what changes, or what could potentially change as you become a more experienced amputee, as you say, Teresa, is how much energy can your body tolerate expending. I know that was a really awkward way of saying that. So, basically it's saying, when you first start a running program, let's say you're training for a 5K, Is it normal for a beginner running the 5K to be huffing and puffing after half a mile? Yes. Okay. And let's say this person, all they do is the same training for years. They don't push themselves. They don't try to go any harder. They just do the same kind of training. Years later, are they still going to be huffing and puffing after that first half mile? Yes. Okay. So in the same way with an amputee, as an amputee, you're expending more energy and you're recovering from an amputation, right? So one of the muscles that you have to train to build endurance is your cardiac muscle, right? So even though you're expending that amount of energy, if you train your cardiac muscle, that shortness of breath will improve. Will it go away completely? It depends on each individual. You know, I've been training as a runner for years and I'm still huffing and puffing after a 5K. And I've got girlfriends who don't even break a sweat when they go running a 5K. You know, so everyone's a little bit different there in terms of how their body responds. Okay. But that is something, Teresa. And Teresa, I know you are a hard worker when it comes to your fitness and everything that you're trying to do to get your mobility goals. So if you keep working at it and you keep working on your cardiac endurance, that will improve as well over time. Okay. But yeah, there are some folks that they still have a lot of problems with the endurance factor because they just haven't worked on it. Liz says, I'm in the middle of getting fit for a Revo Fit because my right side is very short. So the Revo Fit, guys, let me just kind of explain this as well because some people got a little confused in the beginning. The Revo Fit is a kit, okay? So Click Medical makes a kit with all the materials needed to build the adjustability into the socket. Okay. Your prosthetist is still the one custom making your socket, right? Let me just always like to clarify that. Okay. So the Revo Fit is going to have, you know, a BOA dial or a click reel, depending on which one you get. And it's going to have the lacing that you're seeing. I don't know if you can see that. Appreciate that. The lacing that goes throughout the socket. And then your prosthetist builds it into the socket itself. Okay. Really, really great tool. Mm-hmm. And again, Susan, not, you know, and for me, there's certain products that I like to showcase on my show because I've seen a lot of success with my viewers. I've seen a lot of success with my patients, and I love working with a particular company. But by no means do I say that there's one size for everybody. Okay. Not everybody is meant to have an adjustable socket. Not everybody is meant to have a traditional socket, right? Everybody's needs are just a little bit different. So please always keep that in mind, you know, when we're talking about stuff on the show. My job is to present you with as many different options as I can and to show you what's out there, what's available, and how you can get information on some of these items, and also to give you information to take to your prosthetist, to have conversations with your prosthetist and ask, and your physical therapist, if you think that something might be appropriate for you to use. Okay, so don't get bummed about it, Susan. just take this information, put it in the back of your head, and next time you talk to your prosthetist, ask them about this and see what they have to say. Eric says, I have a question. I'm doing all of my exercises, but I'm still losing my butt. Yeah, and this happens a lot, Eric, especially with my above the knee amputees. And this is also very similar to what Susan mentioned beforehand about her, even as a below the knee amputee, she's noticed that her thigh muscles are atrophy. So guys, as an amputee, you know, you will, I hate using the word never, it's pretty dramatic sounding, but you won't have the same muscle that you had prior to amputation. Are there exceptions out there? Yes. I have a couple of Instagram folks that I follow that they are bodybuilders, right? And those muscles are huge, and they have managed to figure out how to do that kind of strengthening. But that's very extreme, extreme strengthening right there. But typically, yes, in an amputee, especially in the above the knee amputee, the gluteal side of the amputation is not going to be as strong as the sound side. And can you work on it? Yes, absolutely. And can you prevent some of the atrophy from occurring? Yes, absolutely. Okay. But depending on your body mechanics, okay, some atrophy is going to happen. Does that mean you should give up and not do it? No. If anything, Eric, the fact that you notice that even with your strengthening, you're still losing your butt, as you say, that just indicates how important strengthening will be for you, because imagine how much more you would be losing if you weren't doing the strengthening exercises. The other thing to consider, Eric, is, are you doing the strengthening exercises correctly? Okay. Any of you who have been a patient in my clinic, you know that I am a stickler for form. Okay. And I talk a lot about it in my video program and in the book. I talk a lot about form and getting the right position. Because Eric, a lot of time, well, pretty much every time someone comes into me and says, I've been doing the strengthening exercises you gave me and it's just not working. I say, well, I'm kind of doing this for a while, so I know these strengthening exercises work. So let's see how you're doing it. Okay. 9 times out of 10, it's usually something in their form that is off and they are targeting the wrong muscle. Right? They're targeting the wrong muscle. Okay. So Eric, if you pick, let's go with the bridging exercise, because that's my favorite. Like that's like a butt buster right there. Right? If you go with the bridging, if you are doing the bridging exercise correctly, by repetition number 10, you should start to feel fatigue in that muscle. Okay. If you are not feeling fatigue in your muscle and you are doing it, doing the glute, chances are there is something off about the form and technique that you're using with the glute bridge. Does that make sense, Eric? So Eric, I'm going to put this on you. I want you to email me, and I'm going to put my email here up here. All right. So there's my email, Eric. I want you to email me a picture of you doing the bridging exercise. And I promise I'm not going to share this picture. It'll just stay in my email and that's it. Okay. I want you to email me a picture or a video of you doing the bridging exercise. And let's start with that one. Yeah. I know I love doing this stuff. Patrick, you're not watching the replay, dude. You're watching the live thing. Cracks me up. Let's see. Mark says, I love my click adjustable leg. Teresa says, yay, that's what I'm working on currently. My PT guy said the same thing as well. And Teresa, for me, when it comes to endurance and fitness, it's a lifelong pursuit. It really is, right? Whether you have 1 leg, 2 legs, no legs, whatever the case is, it really is a lifelong pursuit because, unfortunately, after 30 years of age, things start going downhill and our muscle strength, muscle mass goes with it. So use it or lose it. And for me, it's always just about setting new goals for myself, Teresa. So I had, multiple surgeries, multiple rounds of chemo when I had breast cancer years back. So coming back from that, right, going through that initial rehab process of just getting myself back to baseline normal. But then after that, Teresa, I just started setting goals for myself. Okay, my first goal after chemo is to start running again, right? And then to run my first 15K, right? And then to PR, get a personal record on my next 5K. So there's always just some new little goal just to kind of keep pushing myself, because I do recognize that as I get older, it's just a little bit harder. Got to work a little harder to keep that endurance and strength. So Teresa, I've seen your posts and you certainly have a wonderful attitude and approach to your fitness and to continue working on it. Yes, there really, in my opinion, there's really never an end point to your endurance and fitness and strength training there. Denise says, is the boa dial and click wheel on the review fit so big that it affects the fit of your pants? No, it's actually pretty low profile. And they developed a new click reel that is actually very, very low profile, Denise. But the nice thing is that you're still able to adjust it without having to lift your pants up. So none of my patients that have the adjustable socket, the Revo Fit, they don't find an issue with the reel, and you can place the reel in different places. Okay. So you're not like I said, I've got a demo model here. So I've got like 3 reels here at the bottom. Okay. But there are different ways that your prosthetist can place that reel. Okay. So that it's not interfering with your clothing. Denise says she has no problems at all with the swelling when flying. Lucky. Teresa says, my booty has gotten tight after being atrophied for 40 years, not buns of steel, but hey. And it's interesting, Teresa, like I have had some patients come in that, they spent years with whatever injury that they had prior to having their amputation. So all those years prior to their amputation, their muscles atrophied, right? And they are surprised that once they start prosthetic training with me as with physical therapy, that those muscles actually start building up again. And it's like, well, yeah, if you weren't using them prior and we're activating them even just a little bit, you're going to start to notice something coming back. So yeah, it's always fun. Stephen asks, when I do the glute bridge, my prosthetic foot isn't flat on the ground, so I lift my anatomical to match. Is this correct? No. So Stephen, you want to leave your anatomical foot flat on the floor. And yes, when you're doing your glute bridge, your prosthetic foot is probably going to be popped up into what we call dorsiflexion, where the toes are up. That's normal. And that's not something that you can really adjust. The best thing to do is when you're doing it is making sure that your knees are even. So when you're in the bridge, just making sure that your knees are even and that not one is higher than the other, something like that. So I hope that makes sense. And I do explain that on the video as well. Actually, if you can see and of course my account isn't working right now. But when you see me working, I think it's actually on the main page. Let me check. Oh, okay. Yeah. So guys, if you go to my main page for the strong body, okay, so if you go to the main page on the Strong Body website and you scroll down, there's 5 sample exercises, and one of them is the bridging with the prosthesis on. So Stephen, go back and watch that because you'll be able to see that. I think it's Damon doing the exercise. My computer's being a jerk right now, so I can't be telling you right away. But I can tell you whichever one of my 2 models is either going to be Robin doing the exercise or Damon. You'll see that their prosthetic foot is not flat on the mat. That's just the way the prosthesis is. And then also, Stephen, if you're finding you're really not activating both sides when you're doing that glute bridge, there's a way to do it without the prosthesis on. Okay. And you just have to be, again, careful with your form while you're doing it. Okay. To make sure that you're activating those muscles. So Marianne says, I wear shorts all the time. I have 2 dials on each leg and they both show under my shorts when I walk. Marianne, do you have the Revo lock as well? That's probably why you have 2. I'm guessing that might be why you have 2 dials, or you might have 2 forms of adjustability built in there. Let me know. Okay. Ooh. Got all the questions. Woohoo. All right, guys, not bad for a mom of 4 on first day of school, huh? Woohoo. All right, so guys, before I go this evening, I do want to tell you next week, okay, Click Medical is coming on the show. Click Medical is the wonderful company. Sorry, I'm texting here. Click Medical is the wonderful company that makes the Revo Fit socket, but they also make the Revo Lock, which is their suspension system, okay? Really nifty little system. I've learned a lot more about it these past couple of months. And we had a very nice show on suspension. I think it was 2 to 3 weeks ago with Ronnie Dixon from Prosthetic Orthotic Associates of Tennessee. So we talked all about the different suspension systems that are out there, guys. So this show next week is going to be a really nice follow-up to that because I really don't talk a lot about suspension systems on the show. I don't know why. So I would encourage you, if you're suspension system, what is that? What is the difference between a suspension system and socket design and this and that and the other? Go back to my YouTube channel and watch the show on suspension systems so that you can be ready for next week's show. Okay. And I put up there my general website, www.cositalks.com. Go there, sign up for my email subscription, guys. I don't spam people with a ton of emails. I barely do an email maybe once a week when I have something really cool to share. This week, I'm going to have something cool to share in the form of a really nice giveaway. So those of you who are my email subscribers, please go ahead and check your emails. And if you're not on my email list yet, sign up. You can sign up at cositalks.com. Okay, so do that now because I'm going to be sending out that email in the next day or two. Here's a last question. Guys, stay with me and answer this question for me because I am trying to revamp a few things on the show. So a lot of times some folks tell me, Cosi, I don't know when you're going live, or I forget, or whatever. Would you guys want for me to set up a text service where you would get one text a week from me, maybe 5 minutes before I go live? If that is something that you guys are just like, yeah, we'd sign up for something like that, or you're like, no, we don't want you on our phone, I won't take it personally. Can you guys put that into the comment section? And those of you watching the replay, I would love your input on this as well. There are some services that you can sign up for where you just get a text message saying, hey, Cosi Talks is going live and you get that text message on your phone. Is that something you would be interested in me setting up so that you can get those reminders? You guys are so sweet. We got yes, 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 absolutely. Okay. Yes. Okay. Wonderful. Okay. So I'm going to look into that because it's one of those things where you're like, I don't want to pop up on your phone if you don't want to hear from me. So, all right, I will look into that. You guys are awesome. Sounds good as long as you don't sell my info. No, definitely not. No. Let's see. Teresa says no because you get the notifications with YouTube. Well, I didn't know that. That's awesome. Okay, good. Denise says yes. Okay, so I will look into that, guys, and we'll have some more information for you there. Ben Gregory, you're awesome. All right, guys. As always, thank you for letting me be a part of your lives this evening. I will see you same bat time, same bat channel next week, guys. Remember, Click Medical coming on the show. We're talking about RevoLock. Check your email so that you can get the giveaway information. Don't forget to send me your questions to my email, and I think I covered all the housekeeping tips there. All right, guys, have a wonderful evening. God bless.